If something cannot go on forever, it will stop. These were the words of economist Herbert Stein. His statement is obviously true, but should not be glossed over. Let me say the words again, and let them sink in for a moment. If something cannot go on forever, it will stop. So why do his words warrant reflection? Well, I think if you subscribe to my channel, you are already of the opinion that the state of our world economy cannot continue. Our debt is growing exponentially. We have a growing chasm between those who are well off and those who are not. The promises made to the aging members of our population cannot possibly be backed by the productive efforts of the youth who are entering the workforce. The number of people on disability or food stamps hits a fresh record every month. The cost of food, fuel, and medicine increases every year at a much greater rate than incomes increase. These are unsustainable trends. If something cannot go on forever, it will stop. So what will it mean to stop? How will it happen? What will a reset look like? Let's think about it a little. I'm going to take this picture off the screen now so that we can go deeper into our minds without distraction and imagine what a reset might look like. So now that the picture of those beautiful gold coins are no longer there to distract, imagine that you are one of the elite, that is to say one of the richest and most powerful people in the world. You're not a politician. No, you're one of those people who decides which candidates will run for office, and then once they're elected, you'll be one of the people guiding their actions. As such a person, what are your main objectives? Well, for one, you quite enjoy having wealth and power. You would like for that to continue. In order for that to happen, you need to do two things. Firstly, you need to keep a low profile. It doesn't help you to advertise your presence to everyone and to flaunt your wealth. No, in a world filled with envy, that would make you a target. Secondly, you need for the world to work efficiently and for people to be generally happy and content. It's in this second area that you're starting to have a problem. You see, many generations ago, the economy wanted to grow and grow quickly. Crude oil was discovered as a source of energy. It was plentiful and easy to tap into. Plus, because of the Industrial Revolution, there were lots of advancements in machinery that could use the oil. The main problem was that the money supply could not be expanded fast enough to allow the economy to grow quickly. Your predecessors made attempts to grow the money supply by issuing credit that was only partially covered by the existing stock of gold. This created problems because occasionally trust would be lost, and the people who saved in these credit instruments would try to collect their gold. Maintaining the ever-growing supply of money and credit required some fairly major rule changes along the way. Eventually, the gold backing was abandoned altogether. This worked for a while. The credit-based money system seemed to be accepted by the people, and the economy continued to work. The economy expanded as quickly as the flow of oil could be increased, mainly because the money system did not act as an obstacle. But the main limitation of a credit-based money system is that it requires a rapidly growing economy in order to function. The people who lend their capital to others in the present always require the promise of more to be returned to them in the future. It is this additional amount that we typically call interest that acts as the incentive for the owners of capital to lend it to others. And so, if the borrowers of the capital can use it to produce more than was lent to them, the debt and the interest can be paid and the system can function. But if the borrowers cannot produce in excess of what was lent to them, at best the interest cannot be paid, and at worst the original principal disappears and the lender would have been better off not parting with his resources in the first place. The problem that we now face is that the oil is becoming more difficult to extract from the earth. Oil exploration activities are identifying smaller wells, and the discoveries tend to be spaced further apart in time. It costs more to extract the oil from older wells due to the need to inject nitrogen and CO2 in order to maintain wellhead pressure. Some of the newer fields require quick bursts of steam, sand, and CO2 to break apart rock. What was once a matter of tapping a hole and catching the oil from a gusher has become a fairly expensive mining operation. The total flow of energy from the earth is slowing down. It is the energy flow that is putting the brakes on the economy now, not the money supply, as was the case before. And so, What was once a very useful and vibrant money system is now a major liability. The debts have grown enormous, and the ability of the debtors to pay is now in question. While many have not realized the nature of the problem, you know very well that there is no more incentive for the lenders to lend. Those who borrow will find it very difficult to pay back their loans with interest in a world that is not growing as before. There is now a very real danger that the flow of capital will slow down and eventually stop. When this happens, the people will be very discontent and will probably act very unpredictably. And so the main thing you, and others like you, need to work on is a new monetary system to replace the old one. This new monetary system must not require rapid growth. Quite the contrary, it would be better if it favored a low level of growth. Most of all, though, you need to jettison the old debts that cannot possibly be repaid and restore confidence so that capital can start flowing again. You've already tried reducing the value of the currency by creating more of it so as to inflate away the debt. Unfortunately, what you found was that the system as it is set up required more debt to be issued by the governments of the world in order to create more currency. To make matters worse, the primary dealers took the money and traded it back and forth with each other. The money didn't really enter the economy as planned, so this solution didn't work either. You've thought about changing the rules so that the debt purchases would not be required in order to create the currency. That solution, however, would run the risk of further losing the confidence of the lenders. You also can't just add a zero to the currency because that would also have the same effect. No, if the debts are going to be greatly reduced while introducing a new monetary system, you're going to need a way to do it without everyone losing confidence. You also need to arrive at a solution that all of the other world power brokers will buy into. This is going to be difficult because all of you own a significant portion of the debt of the world, and each of you own it in different amounts. You're going to need a way to keep both yourself, as well as all of your peers, more or less whole. And so it occurs to you that what you need is something that can be obtained by you and your power broker peers, all without drawing much attention. Something that can later be increased in value greatly relative to all other assets. There is only one item, aside from paper, that can be assigned an arbitrary value without impacting the world economy. That item is gold. Anything else, if increased in price suddenly, would cause the economy to suffer. An additional reason to choose gold is that it has a rich history as part of the monetary system, and most of the world values and trusts it already. Instant credibility. But the value must be adjusted all at once, after you've obtained what you need. In this way, the bonds you hold that will be vaporized will be offset by the value increase of the gold. It doesn't help you if the price climbs as you buy it, so you'll have to have agreements with entities that will sell paper contracts short as you acquire the physical. This will enable you to have a nice steady flow of gold into your vaults, without creating an obvious price signal in the market that something is wrong. Once you and your peers have the amount of gold that you each need to compensate for debt write-offs, then you will arrange for gold to be revalued. Of course, the dealers who sold the paper short will go bankrupt, but being corporations, they are all separate legal entities, and so you will be in no way harmed. So how will you go about this revaluation? Well, you can't just have the governments of the world confiscate the gold and then declare its value later. That would eliminate your ace in the hole for maintaining your wealth. You would end up having to either break the law and keep your gold, or else surrender it and then lose all of your wealth when your debt was extinguished. There is a better way. You remember that what created the power of the gold and silver standards of the past was to open the mints to unlimited coinage. This way, if a value was given to gold that reflected its monetary value instead of its commodity value, a value much higher than today, it will have an infinite bid placed under it. Anyone who wanted to offer gold at the high price would have an automatic buyer. So flash forward several years from now, when all of the power brokers of the world have obtained the gold that they need. After the media has conditioned the people of the world that new currency is necessary and in their best interest. One day, probably on a weekend, the Bank of International Settlements makes an announcement. There will be a new currency introduced that will be backed by gold held in its vaults. The currency will be redeemable for gold in a 1-to-1 ratio whenever anyone chooses to make a withdrawal. All old currency can be turned in for this new currency at a ratio determined beforehand for each currency, and the new currency would be legal tender for paying off all past debts. To attract enough gold to the vaults of the BIS to support the currency, they will create a mint. The mint will be open to the public free of charge. Anyone who wanted could go bring their gold to the mint to be assayed, weighed, and stamped into a coin that the gold owner could then take with them. The stamp would have a number associated with it. Each gram of gold would be worth, say, 10,000 units of this new currency. The owner of the gold would be free to take his coins with him or deposit them with the bank in return for more convenient paper of a more convenient denomination. The public wouldn't really understand what happened, because they don't really understand money, much less gold. The major power brokers of the world would have their wealth maintained, and best of all, for them, no attention would be drawn to that fact. Over time, the physical gold that was in the hands of the people would circulate. Some of it would be in the form of physical, but most of it would be in the form of paper money issued by the Bank of International Settlements. Most of the physical gold holders will be much better off. Owners of paper gold will find that what they thought they owned cannot be honored because it was an obligation of a corporation that is now bankrupt. All in all, your objective was achieved. You transitioned to a new currency system that is ideally suited for a low-growth economy. You wiped out the giant debt overhang without reducing your wealth. You maintained the confidence of the public in the currency system. And you did it all in a way that did not create public anger. Mission accomplished. So now that we've had our little thought experiment, I'll put the pretty picture back up. What I've just explained to you is only one of our possible futures. There are many other ways that the future may unfold, but this is my personal theory. It doesn't involve war, it doesn't involve confiscation. All it involves is a very subtle change in the form of opening a public mint to unlimited coinage. We've had such a system in the past. If this theory pans out, it will mean a sudden revaluation of gold upward by orders of magnitude. It will not be so much of a decree as an offer to stamp a number onto a very humble piece of metal.